how to do a German accent by a German native, Feli from Germany. So let's actually see how we can actually do a German accent. I really do not know how to do that German accent, so let's watch this video and let's find out. But just before we do continue, guys, do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let's get on with it.
You want to know how to make a German accent? Don't worry, this is easy. I teach you.
Okay, it's easy by the looks of it. Let's see if it actually is though.
Hello, servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Felicia. I'm originally from Munich, Germany, but I've been living here in Cincinnati, Ohio on and off since 2016. So a few weeks ago, I made this video of me reacting to scenes in Hollywood movies and TV shows with German characters that, spoiler alert, in a lot of cases speak terrible German, or even their German accent when speaking English is obviously fake. And I asked you guys if you'd want me to make a video about how to do a real German accent, and I got a lot of comments saying that you'd love to see that, so here it is. Now, I've been living in the US for over 4 years now, and my American friends love making fun of Germans around me by doing a German accent, and they all sound something like this for some reason.
Oh, yes. That is wunderbar. I will go ski in the Alps today and eat some schnitzel.
Don't get me wrong, it definitely sounds funny, but it doesn't necessarily sound like a particularly German accent to me. And I don't really understand why a lot of people do this thing where they kind of try to sound extra feminine in order to sound German. So let's go through a few different things that you should pay attention to when trying to do a real German accent.
I'm also going to test this myself, so let's see how well I can actually do the German accent. So stay tuned, guys.
So that you can either sound like cis, or you can also have a lighter German accent like this. Now we're going to focus on having a German accent while speaking English, but this will actually also help you with your German accent when speaking German as a second language, because it all goes back to Germans applying pronunciation patterns from their native language to the foreign language. And when you're aware of these patterns and pronunciation rules, you can actually sound more like a native when speaking German as well.
Are you tired of payment providers?
A lot of these things go back to sounds that exist in the English language but don't in German, and therefore people who grow up speaking German as their native language oftentimes struggle making these sounds. And one of those sounds is the English TH. Many Germans can't really pronounce that, and instead will either replace the TH with an S or a Z sound, as in this is the best weather of the year, or with a D sound, as in this is the best weather of the year, instead of this is the best weather of the year. When I want to...
This is the best weather of the year. This is the best weather of the year.
Imitate a really strong German accent. I usually do the first one though. Another sound that we don't have in German is the English W sound, the woo, where you really don't even touch anything with your lips or teeth. And this one is definitely easier to learn than the TH, but many Germans still struggle with it, and therefore just use the German W sound, which is the same as the English V sound. So it's V. So if you want to do a strong German accent, you can say things like, what a wonderful day with amazing weather, instead of what a wonderful day with amazing weather.
What a wonderful day with amazing weather. Okay.
Now, some Germans are totally capable of pronouncing the English W, but they falsely assume that in order to sound more English and less German, they should avoid the German V sound at all times.
Okay, I get it.
And they don't realize that the English V is pronounced V as well. So then it oftentimes happens that Germans will pronounce both Ws and Vs as the English W, ooh. So they would say, the volume of the TV is very loud, instead of the volume of the TV is very loud.
Sounds kind of
I hear
funny,
this a lot with the word very, so to all Germans watching this, don't be afraid of the V sound. It does exist in English as well, you just need to know when. W is woo, as in where, and V is V, as in very. Another tricky one is the English R. The German R is pronounced like this, which of course is really hard to make for everyone who learns German as a second language.
That wasn't too hard for me. Okay, I think I got this.
But believe it or not, to us, the English R sound can be tricky too, especially for people who learn English later in life, which is why you'll sometimes hear German immigrants who came to the US decades ago still use the German R sound. So if you want to sound extra German, you can just pronounce all R's the German way, if you can pronounce that, and say something like, "These are really great red roses," instead
Okay, that really does sound German, I'm not gonna lie, guys.
of "These are really great red roses." And as you could
He's a really... I lost it,
here, I didn't really pronounce the R in the word R at all, which is also something that Germans do in German a lot, especially when words end on R. It's kind of what you would do in a British accent too. Instead of car, Germans might say ka. Now, some Germans who can't pronounce the English R but can pronounce the W will then try to replace the R's with a W sound because they think it's the closest sound to an English R, and they'll say things like, "These are really great roses." This is also
These are really great roses. Yeah, I think I got it.
also kind of like what native English-speaking kids also do when they first learn how to speak, so it's kind of like English baby language in a way. The next thing is that in German, we don't really make a difference between a D and a T at the end of words. I've mentioned this before in my false friends video. Germans usually pronounce a D at the end of a word as a T, whereas in English, that is a very big difference. So instead of brand, Germans will say brand. Instead of crooked, Germans will say crooked. Instead of the name Ted, Germans will say Ted. You get the idea. So if you do that with
Yep, we
all of
get
your
it.
D
We get
endings
it.
in English, you'll already sound a lot more German. You can
Okay.
do that with other word endings too, by the way, so just pronounce them more harshly than you usually would and devoice them. So instead of saying Germans, say Germans. Or instead of cars, say cars. Or if you apply the R rule as well, say Kas. This applies to
Kas.
other endings too, like a
Okay.
G ending. You can say dog instead of dog. Now let's talk about
Dog.
vowels. German vowels, like in most languages, just make one sound per vowel, one sound per letter. The German vowels are A, E, I, O, and U. Now,
So A, E, I, O, U.
the reason why I'm putting so much emphasis on this is that even though you might not realize doing it, English vowels are actually diphthongs for the most part, meaning that for one vowel, you actually make two sounds. So you move your mouth while saying them. Like in A. See my mouth moving? A.
A.
Then E is pretty
E.
straight, like you don't move your mouth here.
E.
E. But then you have I,
O,
O, and U.
U.
So in order to sound more German, you'll need to pronounce your vowels more like just one letter, just one sound. Straighter, as I like to
Okay,
describe
I think
it.
we're
We do
getting
use
this.
the word okay a lot in German, for example, but instead of saying okay, like in English, we tend to say something like okay or
Okay.
okay. Or you'd say hello instead of
Okay,
hello,
okay.
or paper instead of paper. Germans also tend to pronounce their vowels pretty short, like saying cat instead of cat, and they
Cat.
might replace some of them with the
Cat.
German sound, like say end instead of and. We just use the
And.
German E sound instead of an English A. Or Germans might say ambition instead of ambition, and just use
Ambition.
the German A
Okay.
instead of the English A. My last major pronunciation tip in order to imitate a German accent is about the L sound. Now in English there are two different L sounds, a dark L that is pronounced more in the back of your throat, L, and a light L that is more pronounced with the tip of your tongue. As in telephone. In German, we don't have the dark L at all, so if you just replace all dark L sounds with a light L, you'll sound a lot more German very quickly. So
Well,
instead of
there's
saying
a lot of things to like sound German, honestly. Like she mentioned so many things so far, and we're just halfway through the video.
I need to
Damn.
call all of my middle school Latin students, you'd say I need to call all of my middle school Latin students. Now that was with only the L part of the accent. If I do the whole accent on the sentence, it would sound like this. I need to call all of my middle school Latin students. And last but not least, let's talk about grammatical
Yeah,
mistakes
that
that Germans
sounds
tend to make
really
in English.
German.
Because it's not just the pronunciation that makes an accent authentic, it's also the way that people phrase things. I actually made a whole video about mistakes that Germans should avoid when speaking English. I'll link that down below. So basically, if you just go through that and then make all of these mistakes that I told people to avoid, you will sound pretty German. One thing I
Okay.
mentioned in there is that Germans can't really tell difference between the word since and for, as in I've lived here since 2016 versus I've been living here for 4 years. Germans tend to always use since. Another thing is that English has some uncountable nouns that we don't have in German, and therefore Germans tend to use plural forms of these nouns that don't actually exist in English. An example would be the word information, for example, or also the word hair. Germans might say, I need some more informations, or I'm getting my hairs cut. What I didn't mention in that video is that Germans tend to use the verb to make in contexts where you wouldn't really use it in English. So if you just use that word a lot, it'll help you sound more German too. Just say something like, I have to make a photo instead of take a photo, or to make sport instead of to play sports or to exercise, or I'm making vacation instead of I'm on vacation, or making the apartment clean instead of cleaning up the apartment. In general, just replace the verb to do with to make every now and then, and you'll sound pretty German. Another thing that Germans struggle with.
Yeah, this is gonna make me forget my English, honestly. If I tried like speaking like Germans, like say anywhere I walk into stores, work and things like that, bro, I'm totally gonna forget my English. So I'll try to avoid talking like that.
With our English time modes. We don't have a progressive form in German, for example, so I'm going instead of I go, and Germans actually tend to use the progressive form way too much and will say things like I'm living in Germany instead of I live in Germany, or I'm going to the University of Cincinnati instead of I go to the University of Cincinnati, when they just mean to attend. So overusing the progressive form is one thing, and then Germans also use the present tense a lot. For example, instead of using the present perfect progressive, as in I have been living here for 4 years, Germans might just say I live here for 4 years, or actually they would say I live here since 4 years. And we also like to use the present tense instead of the future tense, because that's also what we do in German.
Okay.
So instead of saying I will go to the movies with you tomorrow, we'll just say I go to the movies with you tomorrow.
Like,
or
just like
instead
kids'
of
language,
I'm
like
going
baby
to apply
language,
for
to
that
be
job
honest.
next week, Germans might say I apply for that job next week. And last but not least, Germans oftentimes make statements and then turn it into a question by adding the word oder, meaning or at the end.
Oder,
You can
okay.
do that in English too, but you'd probably add something like right, as in you're in 5th grade now, right? Or you're in 5th grade now, aren't you? If you want to sound German though, just add the word or to the end of your sentence and say you're in 5th grade now, or. The last point that's probably
that
pretty
does
important to know
sound
is
pretty
how
weird.
to pronounce the word German or Germany with a German accent. If you want to do it really strongly, you can say German or Germany. German, Germany. We basically
German,
pronounce it with
Germany.
the O umlaut letter, Ö, which probably doesn't help you a lot, but just try
German,
and say
Germany.
German. Also,
German.
Germans tend to pronounce every single letter that's written down, so don't try to drop any word endings. That's not going to sound particularly German. And in German, we usually emphasize the first syllable of each word, unlike in French, for example, where they emphasize the last syllable usually. I think with these tips, you should be able to do a pretty decent German accent, maybe sounding something like cis. And as I've said throughout the video, you can also do different degrees of a German accent simply by either applying all of these points all at once, or only applying a few of them, or by making some of the more advanced pronunciation mistakes. If you have something to add, please feel free to do so.
Wow. Okay, so what do you think about this video? How's that? Come on, guys. Come on. Let me know your thoughts, guys, in the comments below. I hope you will enjoy. That was a pretty interesting one. If you did enjoy, guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next one. Let me know what other videos you want me to check out. Send links in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and peace out.